Disclaimer: there is a funky transition of the terms FMS, FMC, and CDU being used in different phases of the video. Please note that these are all referring to the same component, that being the flight management computer. Hi everyone, thanks for checking in. I'm Timbo from the Salty Simulations team. Today, I will be running through basic directions and tips on how to use SimBrief to implement a flight plan on the Salty Simulations 747. SimBrief is an extremely useful tool that allows for producing flight plans to your liking, or to real routes that are flown commercially. Now, I will show you the steps to get SimBrief fully functioning. Let's head on over to the cockpit. Oh hey, I'm so glad you could make it on the flight deck. Before we dig in, we are assuming that the aircraft has power and most basic requirements or checks have been made. These prerequisites will be reviewed in another video. First of all, to get SimBrief working, you will need a Navigraph account. Head on over to the link shown, navigraph.com, click Get Started, and create a Navigraph account. We highly encourage you to purchase an Ultimate subscription. This subscription provides you with the latest nav data and other various features, like charts with moving maps. Once you have created your Navigraph account, head on back to SimBrief, and log in using Navigraph. Once logged in, it should direct you to the Dispatch tab. Press Create New Flight. You will now be shown a page with various bits of information. You may be confused at first, but don't worry, I will explain some of these boxes. The Selections column can be used for various features, like using different briefing layouts, units of preference, fuel, and other advanced functions. For today's tutorial, we will be leaving all selections in this column as is, and will use kilograms for weight and balances. The first row of information is your flight info. Here, details such as your airline, flight number, departure, arrival, diversion airports, and date and departure times are shown here. If you do not want to use an airline or flight number, they are not required. All that's required is to input a departure airport and arrival airport. SimBrief will automatically provide an alternate airport that accommodates for your airframe. For this demonstration, I will be doing one of my favorite short leg flights, Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport in Atlanta, Georgia, to Charlotte Douglas International Airport in Charlotte, North Carolina. Simply type the 4 placeholder ICAO code of the departure and arrival airport respectively. Here, Raleigh-Durham International Airport was automatically set as my diversion. The date and departure time can be set how you like, but SimBrief will automatically inject values. The next row is your aircraft type. Here, you select the airframe being used, aka, you guessed it, your aircraft type. This will inject information that pertains to your airframe. For the Salty 747, simply click the drop-down box and find B748. The next row is the Advanced Aircraft options. This is automatically generated when an airframe is selected, though you can manually set values to your liking. Next row is Optional Entries. Here, details of flight time, runways for departure and arrival, fuel parameters, weights, and remarks you have are shown. These are automatically set but can be manually adjusted. Our scheduled flight time is 1 hour and 10 minutes. Observing the METAR on screen for Atlanta, we will select departure runway as 08 right. Select Yes if this text prompt shows. Observing the METAR on screen for Charlotte, we will select arrival runway as 18 center. Bear in mind, should weather conditions change either at your departure or arrival airport, you will not be forced to depart and/or arrive on these runways. The FMC will not import your selected SID and star when the flight plan is loaded in, which will be done manually. The rest of these boxes can be left alone. However, there is one other box that is important, that being your SimBrief ID. The SimBrief ID is your identification number used to request and load flight plans into the aircraft's FMC. Remember this 6-digit ID because we will get back to it. The next row is the ARIC cycle. This displays your current nav data. If you do not have a Navigraph subscription, SimBrief will use an outdated ARIC cycle, which can lead to issues in flight planning. This is why we encourage you to purchase a subscription for the most up-to-date nav data. And before you wonder, no, we are not sponsored by Navigraph. We just ask that you consider. The experience is exponentially better when your nav data is up to date. Next row is your route information. This displays the generated route. Here, we can see a SID and star along with 2 en route waypoints that were generated. You can select different flight plans under the suggested routes. We will be using the first option, which consists of the Phil 3 SID with Phil and Kantler as our en route waypoints, concluding with the Jones 2 star. These other 4 tabs are not required for basic flight planning and will not be covered in this tutorial. The bottom of the page will show a map of your flight plan. You can click on the squares resembling waypoints to verify the routing is correct. Once you have checked that all inputs are how you want them, scroll to the top and click Generate Flight. Select Yes. The OFP summary will be shown, which will provide all information like cruise level, airtime, and other bits of information. The bottom of the page will have the OFP summary formatted into a paperwork preview. Phew, we can finally hop back into the cockpit and get this flight plan going. In order for the aircraft to load your flight plan, you will need to input your SimBrief ID. To do this, head on over to the FMC. Ensure the FMC display is on Menu. Then select Salty, then SimBrief. Here, your ID will be inputted. Simply use the keypad below the FMC display and type in your 6-digit ID, and press the corresponding button next to your SimBrief ID. Once you have inserted your ID, the aircraft will remember this ID, so don't worry, you will not have to do this every time you spawn in the simulator. Now, we can move on to getting your SimBrief flight plan into the CDU. Firstly, verify you have generated your flight plan on SimBrief. Then, navigate to the route page on the CDU. Once you are ready to import your flight plan, press the line select key next to the Send text. After the Route 1 Uplink Ready message appears in the CDU scratchpad, press the line select key next to the Load text. Your SimBrief route should now be entered into the CDU. Depending on the length of your route, the time this will take will vary, and you may be prompted to select your desired waypoint if there are multiple waypoints with the same name around the world. If this is the case, cross-check the coordinates the CDU displays with your SimBrief Flight Plan and select the appropriate waypoint. In case there were any issues importing your flight plan and only part of it got imported, the message Partial Route 1 uplink will appear on the CDU scratchpad. Your SimBrief route has now been imported and is ready for use. Select the line select key next to Activate and press Execute on the CDU. Lastly, to import your SimBrief load and fuel data, navigate to the PERF INIT page, and similarly to importing the route, press the line select key next to the Send text. You will now see a preview of the performance values and be prompted if the values are correct. If they are, press Accept. If you experience any issues with this function, we recommend using the default Flight Simulator Weight and Balances feature to make adjustments to fuel and payload. All that's left is to input your SID and star. To do this, head on over to the Departure and Arrival page by selecting the button on the CDU. It should take you to the departure page of your airport. Using the line select keys, select the corresponding SID, transition waypoint if available, and departure runway. For this demonstration, we selected the Fill3 SID, no transition, and runway 08 right as our departure. Once all are selected, press the Execute button. For the arrival, press the line select key next to the text index, and then the line select key next to Arrival. Similarly to the departure, use the line select keys for your star, transition waypoint if available, and arrival runway. For this demonstration, we selected the Jones 2 star, Cantler transition, and runway 18 center as our arrival. Then press the Execute button. Double check that the route is correct by selecting the route page on the CDU and clicking Next Page. You can also use the Legs page to run through the waypoints and verify all is correct. Another useful feature is the step function. This allows you to jump to each waypoint and verify a fluent flight path. To use this, select the Legs page, then switch your navigation display mode to Plan, and use the line select key next to the step text. If you observe any discontinuities, this is most likely due to the SID and/or star having certain vectoring that may be provided by ATC. You can clear these discontinuities in most cases by selecting a waypoint on the legs page and placing it over the vector waypoint. Then select the Execute button. And that's a wrap! Your SimBrief Flight Plan route is now fully imported and ready for use. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope you have an awesome flight.